Hey, welcome back to the Rooted Devotional. This is the second part of Samuel, who was the last prophet leader of Israel. Might say he's the last judge. Now, he's not the last prophet in Judah and Israel, but he's the last guy before the kings start. And that's kind of the subject for today, because while we saw his calling as a young boy and hearing from the Lord, this is considerably later in his life, and he's been the judge of Israel for a little while, several years. The Bible records something interesting about Samuel. It says that none of his words fell to the ground. I've always kind of been intrigued by that phrase. It means that everybody paid attention to what he said, and the things that he said came true. And of course, that causes people to pay attention. But he spoke for the Lord. The Lord spoke to him as in his calling, and then he spoke to the people and he led them that way. And when we catch him today in the story, he's been that for a while. He's started to appoint his successors, and so he set up his sons and tried to train them to lead Israel the way he has. And that didn't go well. His sons were not as godly as he was, and the people rejected them, and then made a bit of an error. And that leads to today's lesson. In 1 Samuel 8 and verse 7, we find God talking to Samuel because he's prayed, because the people have asked for a king like the other nations around them. And Samuel didn't think that was a good idea, didn't think it was right. And so he prayed. And here's what God says. But the Lord told him, listen to the people and everything they say to you. They have not rejected you. They have rejected me as their king. And, they were right to say that Samuel's sons were not godly. What Samuel should have asked God for was not just appoint his sons. He should have asked him, who's the successor? Who should come after me? The people should have asked for another prophet from the Lord. Instead, they asked for a king. And as I mentioned before, tellingly, they asked for a king because that's what the nations around them have. And I think that's a question for us. Are there ways that we don't look directly to God and say, what would you have for us? What's best? But we look around at other people and say, we need to have what they have. We need to have the same amount of money that they have, or the same amount of influence, or the same amount of popularity. Or I thought popularity was something that only the high school students and middle school students were concerned about. I think most of us understand that that's still something that we might call it different things. That's still something that adults chase as being well thought of. Maybe it's a particular title at work, a particular level. In this last week, we've seen Jeff Bezos step down from Amazon's CEO. And, I think, well, if I had that much money, maybe I could afford to step aside too. But, we want to reach the top of the ladder. And in all of those things, I think, like the people of Israel, we would say, well, we're not opposed to God. We just also want, in addition to his leadership and his care and his provision, we also want what the people around us would call successful. We want to be like they do. And like the people of Israel, when we do that, we give away God's very best. God has the very best thing in mind for us. What he values is the most valuable. Relationship with him and God himself are the most valuable things in this world or the next. And that's important. We chase things that this world has to offer, and they're only good for this world. God has things that are good for this world and for all of eternity. And so I think it begs the question for us. Are there ways that we're looking around at the people around us or what the world says is important and say, yeah, that's what I got to have? So that's the question I would encourage you to ask today. Am I chasing something besides a relationship with God as being valuable or the measure of success in my life? And if there's any way we at Union Hill can help you answer that question, or say, man, how do I even go about changing that? We would love to do that and would love for you to reach out to us.